Good morning and or evening. Today is Thursday, the 3rd of February, 2022, and I'm Brach Jennings.
And I'm Peter Clark.
And this is another episode of Intercontinental Media.
Mm-hmm.
And viewers, Peter locks me out of videos.
I do not mean to. I just forget the difference between private and unlisted.
Yes, you see, there is this thing where the director would like to review the episodes before we air them. Then every time, what are we on now? Episode 4? I can't remember.
I'm still getting used to this whole YouTube thing.
Well, so am I. But still, every single time you have locked me out of the video, and I'm going, am I the director or am I just an observer on the side? So I wanted to make my woes known to the public.
Okay.
And now I feel vindicated and happy.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
This is our second episode with my new computer, and thus I probably look different than I have previously. But I still have a little problem, and that is whatever light that I have reflects off my glasses, and it makes this odd sort of angelic glow behind me, and it's rather frustrating, but I don't know what to do about it. So if anybody has any ideas, please let me know what I can do. Because, Brach really doesn't want to play Roma Downey in Touched by an Angel. You remember, I just don't do it as well as she did. I mean, I can try, but, I think it might be a tad disappointing.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And it just comes out of nowhere. It's like the lighting hits my camera and I'm not expecting it. And I just everything gets super bright. And it's like, what is going on here? Like, do other people have this problem, or is it just a me problem? Like, what is going on? Other people wear glasses. Obviously, you wear glasses.
Right, but I have a much better surround set of light. I have nice diffuse. Today I have nice diffuse sunlight coming in from over here that I'm letting light me.
Right. So this could also be in the time of day that we're recording, because it is basically, it's 5:30 in the evening here, so it's nighttime.
Yeah.
In any case, now that I made this big old thing about my computer picking up my webcam, picking up my lighting weird, now it's not doing it. So I think it just wants to be stubborn, or maybe it's decided I'm not an angel after all. Because
maybe it's just being persnickety.
Yeah, I mean, I really sort of wanted to be now, just for effect, but I guess I can't be. I'm just back to being a human. Did you ever watch that show in the 90s, though, Touched by an Angel?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, didn't everybody? It was a hugely popular show.
I thought it got canceled in the end. Ah, there it is. See, Peter, I am an angel sent by God. I'm really not convincing, am I?
Oh, God. Speaking of not convincing.
What's not convincing, Peter?
The Omen.
Oh, my gosh. Did you not like The Omen?
I liked it, but it was... Oh, let me adjust my height there. I don't know that it plays off as a horror film.
Well, that's precisely the reason to love it. Because everything that happens could be seen as a series of unfortunate coincidences.
Well, not just that, but the theology is terrible. The pacing is weak.
I actually like the theology in that movie.
What?
Well, I mean, it's missing the theology of hope that comes at the end of Revelation. But apart from that, I mean, the apocalyptic struggle between Christ and the Antichrist. I mean,
right, but they get all the details wrong.
Okay.
is what I'm saying, right? Like, then they make such stretches, like the rise of the new Roman Empire and the
Oh, I've heard other people do that kind of thing, the rise of the new Roman Empire, and many would even say the US is that.
right. But I don't know. I found it stretched in many ways. It stretched my suspension of disbelief.
Wow. Wow. That is one of my very favorite horror films. We have encountered a major difference between us here, Peter.
Mm-hmm. No, it was to the point that, are you familiar with riff tracks?
No, I'm afraid not.
Okay. Are you familiar with Mystery Science Theater 3000?
Sure. I haven't
Okay.
seen it in years.
Riff tracks is the modern version of MST3K.
Okay.
It was to the point that about halfway through it, I had to stop and see if there was a riff tracks version of it.
Really? It
Yeah.
bothered you that much?
Yeah. I was just like, this is just not holding up for me.
Wow, that is so funny. I've never really, well, I think once I relooked at the Omen in 2014, and then I hadn't seen it until this year. But maybe why I love it is it has Gregory Peck, and it takes a lot of it takes place in London, and I think the filming is just grand. The cinematography.
Oh, the cinematography is just fine. It's a little awkward at points, but for the most part, it's entirely fine. I think Halloween has better cinematography, but I think Halloween comes later.
Yes, but not by much, only
Not by
by
much,
two
but
years.
okay. Anyway, Halloween has better cinematography. Um,
So, but you got bothered by the theology.
I
That is
got bothered by
so.
the theology. I got bothered by the pacing. I actually found it. I had to watch it in chunks because I found it difficult to watch.
Oh, see, I guess. Well, it was clear to me they somehow have a separate poem, right? They are clear what's revelation and what's not revelation. I'm not quite sure where that poem comes from,
Right.
but the I mean, to me, you can also read this as, this highly, highly, highly series of unfortunate events, and that Thorn goes mad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Robert Thorn ultimately goes mad, and that's what leads him to try to murder his son. Um, that it's not. He could have been around mentally ill people and a whole group of them. In other words, it doesn't necessarily have to be that he's raising the Antichrist. But you got to admit, I mean, that kid was a good Antichrist.
Oh yeah, no, he was good, and I mean, at first I was drawn into it, right? Like it was, I guess it was the last third of the movie that I felt like really went off the rails.
So that would be when they go to see when they're in Italy, and they
Yeah,
find the priest who's doing penance, and
yeah,
he writes Cervetti down, and then they go to the cemetery, and yeah.
yep.
Oh, see, I think that's sort of the best part of the movie, because he finally comes to realize that, oh, there's really something going on here, and there's evil that's come to me from day one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, like part of it is the photographer
Mhm.
is just way like, and maybe this is part of my experience in the world of journalism and things like that,
Mhm.
right? Like that photographer, if he had stuff like that, if he had coincidences like that, he would have tried to have gotten that published.
Unless he himself was afraid of death, as you saw that he was.
Right, but he wasn't afraid of death until later on. What I'm saying is is those kind of pictures would have made him good money in a tabloid.
Okay, so the photographer isn't believable for you.
No. And
But
the immediacy with which he jumps to seeking out Thorne's help. And then is willing to just go along with this whole, like, I have to go to Rome. Like, just drops everything.
But he does it because he sees himself, right? He's got the photo of himself and he sees the photo coming up to his neck.
Yeah.
Right. So in other words, there is a self-seeking element to this.
Right, but there's a self-seeking element to it. But then the speed with which he accepts that Damien is the Antichrist is unbelievable to me.
By the way, would you ever name your kid Damien if you ever had another one? I wouldn't.
I mean, not after this movie, but some people still do. I have a friend named Damon, so.
Yeah, but Damon isn't, well, I suppose that's close to the Greek for demon, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the photographer joins along on the adventure, or not the adventure, on the truth-seeking mission to try to make sense of what he saw in the photograph of himself, right? So he doesn't contact Thorne until it involves him personally. So now all we're dealing with is, why didn't he publish the pictures? But remember when the previous nanny hangs herself and Thorne goes into the ambassador building, he damages the photographer's camera. So my question would be, is part of the photographer doubting what he's seeing because of his damaged camera? We're never told if it really got fixed.
I mean, he's using I think he's using a different camera or different lens when we see it later.
Okay, so my theory just doesn't work. It just rests on a person who is
well, and it doesn't get
concerned about the truth,
right? And it doesn't get to, again, how quickly this photographer who barely knows Thorne just accepts that Damon is the Antichrist. I mean, it's just this huge jump that happens. I mean, I accept that he figures there's something supernatural going on, but that this kid is the Antichrist is just, he just leaps there with Thorne. And then he leaps there so thoroughly that when Thorne throws the daggers away, he says, well, if you won't do it, I will.
But is it so? I mean, is it so impossible? Because the photographer knows that the priest has committed suicide. And again, the photographer is seeing all of those pictures, right? So is it really completely beyond the scope of possibilities that this man would come to believe what he's seeing with Thorne? Because by the time they go to Italy, or excuse me, no, not Italy, by the time they go to get the daggers, they've already seen that monk. They've already been in the graveyard and found the Jekylls.
Right.
So is it so impossible that he would come to believe that Damien is in fact the Antichrist?
I don't think it's impossible. I just think there's not enough development done there.
Okay. By the way, I've taken my glasses off because I really did not want to keep looking like an angel. So hopefully, I can't see anything, but hopefully at least Stop looking like Roma Downey.
Yeah.
Um,
I think this movie needed to be either a half hour longer or a half hour shorter.
half hour. What would it have been if it was a half hour shorter?
A really good episode of a TV show like The Twilight Zone or something. Because I think there's the front end drags, which doesn't bother me that much until the back end just is all of a sudden like, and we're just going to fly through all of this and accept everything on hand waves.
But they sit in the cafe together in outside of Rome. They sit and talk about that, right? It becomes a mystery that the two of them are solving.
Right, but what I'm saying is there's no like Thorne instantly trusts this photographer, and this photographer instantly trusts Thorne.
Which is a bit it's different than the priest, but again, we have to remember the priest says that Kathy will miscarry. Kathy miscarries. The priest says
but that's getting into the trust between the priest and Thorne, which I think is very well established. I think that's done incredibly well.
But there is no trust between the priest and Thorne.
There is after the priest dies. Thorne suddenly...
Right, and I think that's why he trusts the photographer.
Right, but why does the photographer trust Thorne?
Well, you got me on that one. Have you ever met somebody in your life where you just trust them when you meet them?
Yeah, but not a politician.
Oh, yeah, but Thorne doesn't look like a politician. He looks like an academic, right? He's this very sort of, it's Gregory Peck. I mean, come on, who could not trust Gregory Peck? I mean, he just has this like presence of security and trustworthiness and stability about him.
Yeah, yeah, but still, I don't know. It didn't sit with me.
Wow. We are clearly having different reactions to this movie. I wonder if part of it is, for me, I love Gregory Peck.
Right.
But how do you feel about him? We've never talked about him before.
He's fine. I mean, I like him well enough. I'm not overly familiar with his body of work.
But you saw the film of To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah, which he was amazing in.
Right, and but he's just amazing in general. I mean, he could come and say to me, "I'm going to glaze you like a Danish," and I would like melt. Which I think was Robin Williams's joke actually about him, because that deep sort of,
yes,
this stature about him. But okay, so the photographer doesn't sit well with you.
Yeah.
And I keep trying to say, but Peter, it's not working. The photographer just doesn't sit well with you.
No, the photographer just doesn't sit well with me.
Okay.
I think I understand why they had to kill off the priest. But if they had just sort of maimed the priest rather than killed him off, I think that would have been a better kind of like, okay, well, this is happening, and now the priest has this information, and the priest is a trustworthy person that both of them trust.
That would have been better than the photographer.
Yeah.
What did you think of the photographer's death, though?
Over the top.
Oh, I thought it was amazing. There's no blood shown. That was Dick Donner's insistence that the red wine fly up when he dies,
yeah,
as symbolic of the blood, rather than actually being gory.
Yeah. No, I appreciated that, but it was like in slow-mo and then from like 3 different angles, then flipping and like
Oh, that was just awesome.
it was great, but it was over the top. That's part of like it wasn't like scary to me. It was almost funny.
Oh, but I thought the way Peck played the reaction was just impeccable.
Well, yeah,
Well,
because
Peck played the reaction was impeccable. Interesting. But no, I thought his reaction was stellar.
oh, absolutely. Gregory Peck is the shining moment and salvation of this movie.
That's what the critics of the Omen would have said in the 70s.
It is what the critics of the Omen said in the 70s.
I think you read the reviews. You didn't go in cold. I think you
No, I went in, I watched it, then I was like, okay, I gotta know what other people thought of this because it doesn't sit. It sits weird with me.
In retrospect, the movie has become more favored.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think it may take that with you. It may take you a few years, but you know.
And I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's not a bad movie. It's a perfectly fine movie. It's just, you know what it is? It's a B movie with A-list actors.
Right, that's what was said originally, right? Because Lee Remick was a very, very important actress of that era. Billy Whitelaw, who played Mrs. Baylock, she died. She died. Actually, it's just been since I've moved to Germany was when she died.
Okay.
Billy Whitelaw was great. I guess those are the only 3 that I know. Lee Remick died of cancer, I think. So all 3 of them are dead now. But yes, a B movie with A-list actors. That's what was said about it at the time. And certainly with Gregory Peck, why was he doing horror? Right. And to my knowledge, it's the only horror movie he ever did.
Which is too bad because I think he makes a great horror sort of straight man.
Horror straight man as opposed to a horror queer man?
The comedy, the straight man versus the setup man.
Okay. Apparently I have no
the straight
humor.
man versus the funny man kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
He's a great person to he represents the audience well.
Clearly I have no humor because I don't know enough about comedy unless it's Modern Family and Malcolm in the Middle, and you hate both of those shows.
I do. So awkward.
We got to have a conversation then at some point about sitcoms here because
for sure.
Because we clearly have different sitcom tastes. By the way, I put my glasses back on because I've just given up. If I take a drink of water without my glasses, I still become an angel. If I put my glasses on, I become an angel. So clearly I'm just angelic on this show.
Yep.
That's okay.
It's fine.
I always wanted to get my wings.
Anyway, yeah, so where were we?
Well, the Over the Top Death, it's a B movie with A-list actors. It's and did I don't know if I said this, but that was something that was said back in the day as well.
Right.
By the way, there are 2 sequels we could view.
3.
I don't count that one. There are 2 sequels we could view.
And a reboot.
I'd rather be dead. No. The Omen is Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, and Billy Whitelaw. The Omen is not whatever they did in 2008, and it's not The Awakening. I think that was the 4th one that they did. I like Omen 2. Okay, Omen 2 is filmed by around the area of Northwestern University. And so, any movie that's filmed in Illinois, as in originally an Illinoisan, I'm sort of bound to like it somehow. But even apart from that, I've always enjoyed Omen 2. Omen 3 was, well, you got to bring it to an end, but it just kind of go, okay, it's the Antichrist. He's in his 30s. He's taking over a company. Great. It's the end of the world. A letdown. Omen 2 is interesting, though.
Yeah.
But
well, that's interesting too, because you're able to view this movie in scope of the whole sequence too.
Yes, but even though I said I liked Omen 2, I think the first one is excellent. I have always thought it was excellent. I don't even know how I saw it. I think I saw it on HBO or some stupid thing like that. In college, and I saw Gregory Peck was in it, and I just said, all right, let's look at it. And I found it I find that movie very intense, right? Intense in a creepy way. Like, it's one of the few movies that I could actually say gives me the creeps somehow.
Yeah, and that was the other. So it does that again. It does that very well, especially like the first third. Right. I got the creeps all over in the first third. The movie, like for me, the movie like starts out pretty good. And then just like slides downhill for 2 hours.
What grade would you give this movie?
What grade would I give this movie? If I were a film professor, I'd probably give it a solid B.
Well, that's not bad. If you're giving it a B, it must still be good. I would have thought you said C or D. I mean, the way you're talking.
No. There's for me, I think I wouldn't be as nitpicky about it if it didn't show promise.
Okay. So it's almost like a critic who loves.
Yeah, it's like it's almost really good.
What do you think in the last scene though, when they're in the church and Peck says, "God help me."
Yeah.
You know, it's like
I think the last scene is great.
But what I didn't like, sorry, go ahead.
It again, it bothers me that they like don't acknowledge that there either was a scandal or there was a scandal covered up, that this diplomat got shot in a church.
Yeah, what I didn't understand about that, and I wanted to ask you about this, is when Peck goes to leave the mansion after he's stabbed Billy Whitelaw. I mean, come on, that was just a great death. After he's done that, and he shoves the kid back in the car, and then he just takes off running. I don't understand why the police officer had a problem with the ambassador leaving his house so quickly. Why isn't the ambassador allowed to do what he wants?
Right, and he should have been under diplomatic. The officer would have presumed he was under diplomatic immunity.
Yes, but if you see someone raising to stab a child, it doesn't matter if you're under diplomatic immunity.
Well, I mean, but they wouldn't have followed him to the church in the first place.
So presumably that officer was working for Satan then.
Or something, or just not being a very good diplomatic officer. I mean, like,
I'm going to go with the police officer was working for Satan.
You can go with that. I'm going to go with just given the evidence from the rest of the film and not very great understanding of the diplomatic corps.
You're such a realist tonight.
I am, but that's because realism, it is the elements of realism that make the supernatural in horror stand out.
Is that why Freddy Krueger works for you?
That's why Halloween works better.
Tell me why.
The cop does not believe the doctor in Halloween.
Yeah, no one believes Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Right. But the cop straight up doesn't believe him, thinks it's a waste of his time. It's most of the plot is about teenagers sneaking around trying to get laid.
Okay.
I mean, it is, right? No one believes anything's going on. Because there's no reason for them to believe anything's going on. And that's what makes it good. We, the audience, know something is going on. And that's what makes it more creepy, more suspenseful, is because we're like, that's where you get the like, don't go through that door. But she doesn't know not to go through that door. And naturally she would go through that door. The boogeyman isn't real. Oh, we know he is.
Is Michael Myers the boogeyman, or is he just a serial killer?
Well, in that movie, he's both.
No, that's what makes it so. See, I didn't pick up on the supernatural stuff the first time I saw Halloween. I had to look at it again, and then I realized, oh, the shape, right? Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think Krueger works just as well, if not better.
Yeah, on the same levels. I mean, Krueger works as. I mean, you like Krueger better. I like Halloween better. This is an established division between us.
We're finding so many divisions. I fear for the future of this show, frankly.
That's what makes it interesting, right?
Well, I suppose, but I never struggled with the Omen, except from when I looked at it in 2014 of, is this believable? I thought, and again, this is largely because of the acting is so good.
Yeah. Well, which it is. The acting is great.
And that's how they make it, at least for me, believable.
Right.
Because
right. I have become you in this one, and I have gotten caught up in the storytelling. I've gotten caught up in the script. And I find the script weak.
What has happened to us, Peter? You see, I stopped taking notes. I took no notes.
There you go.
I just watched the film again and lost myself in a world. And I think Peck is so good that he can sell that. Even if were I taking my 8 pages of notes or something like that. Even if when I did that, I may find the script a little weak in places, I still think he can sell it.
Yeah.
Now, there are some people who would say he was too good for that movie.
I would probably be one of those people.
Ooh, that's harsh.
I think well, I don't know. Is he too good for that movie? Not in a like he shouldn't have taken the role kind of way. Like this movie was below him. But like again, it's just so fascinating, and it's a disconnect that takes me out of the suspension of disbelief. Again, that we have this B-list movie with this B movie with A-list actors.
Is that so uncommon?
I don't know if it's so uncommon, but it jars me. I expect someone like Gregory Peck to have better lines, not better lines, because he delivers the lines he has great. But I expect him to have better lines.
Kathy, I love you.
The death of this child has been foretold.
Okay, now you're making me see how it is a little ridiculous. See, when we imitate him, the ridiculousness of it comes through.
Yes.
But when he does it, it's believable because he's so good. You confess to them, now confess to me. But again, when we do it, it's ridiculous and we're giggling. And when he does it, I believe every word.
Right, but that's again, it's it. I want Gregory Peck to have a better script.
So the fault is David Seltzer's. Then he was the one who wrote it.
Yeah.
You've heard of the so-called Omen curse, right?
No, I've not.
Oh, a lot of
Inform me.
a lot of strange accidents on set. Somebody got struck by lightning, I think. It's one of those things. It's like the Exorcist curse. The Exorcist has one too. And even Passion of the Christ from 2003 has that stuff going on. So you just wonder, these sort of movies, what? I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to go read the star charts or something, but the Omen curse was interesting. You watch a documentary on it. It's on YouTube, or most of the documentaries on YouTube. I think I saw the whole thing. I did see the whole thing because I used to have the special DVD edition. I think it was 2 discs. And
yeah.
I'm an Omen fan.
And that's fine. You're allowed to be. I'm not trying to convince you otherwise. And I'm not saying I'm an Omen hater. I would watch that movie again.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It was enjoyable. It was not great.
It was enjoyable. It was not high art. And
no.
I think from Gregory Peck, you expect high art.
I do. That's exactly it.
And what about Leah Remig? Have you seen Remig? Have you seen her in other things?
Not that I'm aware of. That doesn't mean I haven't. It just means I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, I'm not either. And Billy Whitelaw, have you seen her?
I'm sure I have. She looked familiar.
Yeah. And I think the priest was famous, and I think the photographer was somehow famous too. And
yeah.
Okay, I see. You were expecting, let me put it this way. You were expecting a nice, elegant meal at least a 4-star restaurant, and instead what you got was a really good hamburger from Burger King.
Right.
Using ingredients that were like a 5-star restaurant.
Yeah.
And it feels somehow strange to you.
I think that's it. I think that's a good description of how I feel about this movie.
So you either want it to be the 5-star restaurant or you want it to be Burger King.
Right.
But you don't want it to be Burger King using 5-star, 4-star restaurant ingredients.
Right. This is kind of my problem with Red Robin as a restaurant.
I haven't eaten at a Red Robin in
I don't really want a
15
fancy
years.
burger.
Why not?
I
get all that egg on top of it, and
so like what I will pay for a burger maxes out around $5 to $7.
Okay.
Anything beyond that, and I'm like, I'm gonna get the chicken.
Okay.
I mean, chicken I'll eat it across any price spectrum. But beyond that, I'd almost rather have a cheap steak.
Is it sort of like if I put on my good headphones and my headphone DAC that I've got in my lossless audio, I use Kobas for streaming viewers. I put all that on and I listen to like twangy country music or something. Is it sort of like that? It's just kind overkill.
Yeah.
I've actually been doing that all afternoon.
That's amazing.
Well,
but it's like, so I have 3 sets of headphones for my computer.
Really?
I've got this pair now for recording. They're closed back.
What brand?
Behringer. They're not great.
Okay.
But they're closed back so that sound doesn't escape. It's just for hearing what I need to hear. I've got my Grados for my high quality listening. It's like I'll use that for mastering audio or for sitting in if I'm listening to some jazz or something like that on my computer. And then I've got my wireless ones for when I want to be walking around working down here in the studio.
Why don't you use your Grados for recording?
Because they have an open back, and so sound escapes from them and the microphone picks it up. I used to, and I had to be really careful about levels and stuff like that. You could still, if you listen really carefully, um, when we used to record, you could hear just the tiniest hint of your voice on my track.
Oh, well, I didn't have these at the time, so I wouldn't have heard that. I only have these. These are my Sony MDR 7506s. They're professional studio monitors.
Yep,
Peter likes these, don't you,
they're
Peter?
great. I wish I had a pair.
Dude, get one. It's only $100.
I had so many more things I need to buy that are $100 before I get another pair of headphones.
Okay, well, I'm just saying you could record with these because these things are great for recording.
Yeah.
Now, here's the problem, and you probably already know this because you've said they're great. If you get a certain kind of music or even an audio track that is not recorded well, these will not forgive it. These are not good headphones if you want to listen to Burger King level music
No,
or Burger King level YouTube recorded audio. You will go nuts. What's
that's what these are for.
Oh, at first I thought you were telling me to be quiet, and I was like, "What?"
No,
I was like, "What?"
no. That's what these headphones are for.
I don't. I mean, I have something like that. I have a pair of Sennheiser earbuds, but even Sennheiser, they were like 70 euros. I mean, they
Yeah.
were.
No, these are skull candy. I've had them for years. They're beat to hell.
How much did they cost?
I don't remember, like $50.
Okay. Now I still think my Sennheisers are not. They're not like these, but
No.
they're not bad headphones at all.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean,
They're
they're high quality headphones.
Yeah, especially for I wanted a pair of Grados, but they would have cost me 300 euros, and there's
Oh,
no,
I
I
know,
couldn't
right?
afford that.
Grados are to get good Grado earbuds are insane.
But even when I take our analogies here, there are some things, like even when I said I was listening to my twangy country music, I realized I had that on my Bose Bluetooth
Yeah.
speaker, right? I didn't have it on these.
Yeah.
Um, there are just certain things that I will not listen to with these monitor headphones.
Mm-hmm.
They're too revealing and so much. That's why I only use Cobas now to listen to music, because it's a lossless audio or it's high res. In other words,
Right.
above CD quality, right?
Right.
And I have my my DAC.
Yep.
I have a small DAC, but it's a good one.
Yeah.
And and that's what I do everything with. And so I can get disappointed if I'm trying to listen to something like YouTube is terrible. I mean, this just drives me nuts sometimes
Mm-hmm.
with YouTube. But a high res audio streaming service with these is delightful.
Oh yeah,
You can
absolutely.
hear in classical music with these, you can hear chairs creak
Oh
from
wow.
the orchestra.
Oh wow.
If it comes up on the track anywhere, you will hear it here.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of precision these monitors have, and I think that's why they're so popular. I mean, they're all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And they were made in 1991, and actually they go back all the way to like 1980,
Mm-hmm.
the previous model that these were the successors to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so I don't know, but if I use this analogy, or we use this analogy, you've got 4 different pairs of headphones.
Mm-hmm.
At least what I sense from you is you don't want your skull candy headphones to sound like your Grados.
Right.
But why shouldn't everything sound like your Grados?
Because sometimes like there's too much detail, right? Like, so I can hear, if I'm listening to pop music and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to hear there. I think this is coming from, my background as an audio engineer and my degree in mass media and stuff like that. This is what pop music was designed to be heard on.
No. Oh, but they would have recorded it with these.
Yeah,
most likely.
but when this is a real practice in audio, so they'll have multiple sets of monitors in the studio when they're mixing them, and one of them will be a crappy set of car speakers because they have to make sure it sounds okay on all of them.
It's not that way with classical music. You'd never have a classical recording done like what you're talking about, or a jazz.
I understand, but I'm talking about pop.
Yeah, but come on, Sting is a classically trained musician, brilliant on dozens of instruments. Why shouldn't he sound as good as possible?
Because he needs to sound good on a set of car speakers, because people are going to listen to him in their car.
But what about then this high res audio? If you get Sting in 2496 or whatever the heck it is, I can never remember the numbers, the higher and higher and higher above CD you go.
Yeah.
You're saying that Sting's not designed for that.
Not police era Sting anyway.
What about Ed Sheeran?
No. Ed Sheeran's designed for car stereos. He's mastered for car stereos.
So why does he release now all his albums on LP?
Because you actually master an LP differently. This is really interesting, actually. You have to master LPs differently than if you were to take his song as released digitally and compare it to the song on the LP, they will actually have slightly different waveforms.
Okay. So when I'm listening to the high res version of that, I must be listening to something closer to the LP mix then.
No, you're listening to something closer. You're listening to something comparable. And again, like I'm saying, it's not designed to sound best on car speakers. It's designed to sound okay through the whole spectrum of quality.
And why do you think classical and jazz doesn't do that?
Because the expectation of classical and jazz listeners is that they're more audiophile than pop listeners. People who aren't audiophiles listen to Ed Sheeran. I feel like I've broken you.
You do this, Frank. You do this frequently.
Ed Sheeran is a pop artist.
Yes, I know. I've seen him live 3 times.
Impressive.
Yeah, 3 times.
But his music is designed to be played on the radio.
Why shouldn't we be having radios that are the best quality radios we can find?
Well, HD radio is working on that, but not everyone has an HD radio.
Well, let's make it more affordable then. I think, this is really one of my convictions. I think high quality sound and high quality visual, like HD video that you get on Amazon Prime, right? That's pretty good video on Amazon Prime. That the high def video.
Yeah.
I think that should be available to a wide audience. I just don't agree that we should be listening to stuff on crappy equipment or watching stuff that isn't somehow showing the richness of color. I mean, I struggle with visual media, as you know. Partly it's just because I don't have great eyes.
Yeah.
But what I loved about the transfer that I looked at of the Omen was it was an HD transfer.
Right.
And so the richness, particularly I noticed, of greens, like the grass as they were driving, or the shine on the blacktop as they were driving through the countryside outside of Rome.
Yeah.
Like those things really popped out at me. And I have a fairly good screen now. I have this I have this Lenovo ThinkPad, and it has what's called a full HD screen, whatever that means. And it's nice to look at. The colors are rich, and I've enjoyed. I've only had the computer now about a month, but I've enjoyed several movies and TV shows on it and so forth. And And I think for me, that's a human, almost a human right, that if we have this kind of stuff, it should be available to the widest amount of people possible, not locked up and, costing tens of thousands of dollars. That's ridiculous.
You communist, you.
Well, I'm sorry. It's wanting to share art with the widest amount of people possible. It comes from my music training. I really believe that. So I mean, to be maximized for a car stereo, I would be thinking driving my car, if I had one. I don't have a car and I have no desire to get one, but if I had one, I would be thinking, no, I would want my car stereo to sound as good as possible, because when I'm driving down the road and I'm listening to Bach's B minor Mass, I want to be hearing all the little lines that are intersecting one another while I drive.
Mm-hmm. And car stereos have gotten better than they used to be. I mean, that's a fact. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's they're dealing with the reality of the situation, which is that most people aren't audiophiles and don't care.
Now,
and B, that most of them are getting it through a lot of people, more people are getting their music through streaming service than used to, but a lot of people are still getting their music over FM radio.
Yeah, but the Cobas is fabulous. There's the lowest they go, I think, is the 320 kilobit MP3.
Right.
I use that when I'm walking, I confess, because if I did CD or high res quality audio while I was walking, I'd have no data left on my cell phone. It's a pragmatic thing for me. I take a slight, and plus my dongle can't, because I have an iPhone, my dongle actually can't go any higher than, I think it's one notch above CD quality. I'd have to buy a different dongle, which of course I plan on doing, by the way. But
right.
but I can't in the moment. So I sort of say, well, we'll let it go, and because there's still stuff I want to hear while I'm walking, but but I think because that's such a good service, and it's now in the US, so more and more people can get it. It was started by French audiophiles in 2007, I think. It was originally classical and jazz, and now they have everything. You've never heard twangy country sound better than on Cobas, let me tell you.
I don't know. Apple Music has gone lossless now too.
Apple Music has gone lossless, but they're not high res. Cobas does higher quality than Apple Music.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
As far as I know, yeah. Others do it too. I think Tidal does it. I think Deezer is another one. We have it here in Germany. I don't know if they've got Deezer in the States. But it's so even Spotify Premium offers 320 kilobit MP3s.
Right.
That's at least an improvement. I would not want people to be listening to anything below that, honestly. I really wouldn't. You're doing the music a disservice at some point. And just like, I don't want to watch a 480p video on YouTube. I just don't. Sometimes I do if I'm looking at older footage and interviews and so on and so forth. You can't get it any better than that. But I don't want to look at that. Why would I? It looks tacky. Why are you so amused?
Because of how far off topic we've gotten.
So much for my promise at the beginning of this that we were going to prepare. But I don't think it's that off topic, Peter, because it's this question again of, you're saying B movie with A movie level actors.
Right.
But why shouldn't A movie actors play in a B movie, right? It's all related for me.
Okay.
In other words, to raise the artistic standards in general. I mean, why do we watch movies?
To be entertained.
Oh, I hate that answer. We just watch movies to be entertained. We don't watch them.
No. I mean, there's thoughtfulness to movies. There's art to movies, but some movies are just to be entertaining.
Well, my choir director once said in college that everybody needs to eat food that is easy to digest.
Yes.
And you're saying that some movies are meant to be that kind of easily digestible food.
Yeah.
But why can't really high quality artists like our cast in The Omen come occasionally and make a movie that's easy to digest?
I mean, I suppose they can. It was just jarring to me. I'm not used to it.
Because you really want the strict boundary between art and entertainment.
I think I do.
Okay, so
well, I mean, do I? When it comes to acting, I do.
Okay, why only when it comes to acting?
Well, because I think because I love cinematography, and I think good cinematography should be everywhere.
Okay, but then you're inconsistent. If you think
I'm absolutely inconsistent.
Okay, as long as you admit that, because I don't understand. If good cinematography can be everywhere, which I would agree with you. I mean, I was watching Lord of the Rings recently, the first movie extended version, and the cinematography again just wowed me.
Okay, so here, again, it's not that I don't think it should be everywhere. It's just that let's go back to the food analogy.
Mm-hmm.
If you had a Burger King burger, do you like tomatoes on your burger?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. If you had a Burger King burger with like really good garden fresh tomatoes, wouldn't that be a little jarring to you?
No, I'd say thank God Burger King's up their standards.
But if the meat was still mediocre and the lettuce was still mediocre and the cheese was still mediocre.
See, but I live in Germany now. So the reference that I made about Burger King really applies to Burger King in the US. Over here in Germany, the standards are somehow better. It's not great, okay? It's still different, right? But it tastes better, frankly, than Burger King in the US. I don't want to eat it all the time, but
But for me, like when one ingredient stands out like that, it doesn't make it bad, but it makes it jarring. It draws you away from the experience a little bit.
The experience of eating a burger.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like the first time I had peanut butter on a burger.
Oh my God.
It's really good.
Is it really?
It's really good. But you're like, whoa, there's peanut butter on this burger, and I was not expecting that. It takes you out of the experience for a moment.
Title of this episode: Peanut Butter on a Hamburger.
Burger, right?
The Omen.
Yeah, and Gregory Peck is peanut butter on a hamburger.
Well, okay, but you've admitted peanut butter on a hamburger tastes really good after it shocks you.
Yeah, and I might appreciate The Omen more after a couple rewatchings, but my first reaction to The Omen was it was just very jarring.
I guess it's so analogous for me to music. I mean, I'd like a high school choir to sing with the same commitment and depth as a college choir, even if they're all kids and amateurs. I've never lowered my expectations, if that makes sense. And maybe that sets me up for failure. I don't know. But I'm still grumbling about whatever one is doing, make it the best possible. If I'm writing a popular essay, I want my popular essay to be as good of work and as thoughtful and so on as my doctoral dissertation, even though it's going to read differently, right? But I still want to put the same amount of care and time into it as I would 5 pages of my dissertation. I don't think just because it's more popular level that my own standards should be lowered.
Okay.
And that's I've sort of always been like that, but you would somehow lower your.
I don't know if I'd lower my like I don't lower my standards so much as I lower my expectations.
Okay. Well, I think I have too high of expectations then.
Probably.
But my expectations were met from the Omen. Apart from that very last scene where I couldn't figure out why the police officer was chasing Thorn.
This doesn't make sense.
Well, all I could say is it's a police officer's from Satan. I mean, the dogs were from Satan. The what's her name, Mrs. Baylock, was from Satan. So that, I guess I just have to have Satan ex Machina.
Satan ex Machina. There you go.
And then it all works.
Maybe that's what we'll title this episode.
Yes, I like that. Satan ex Machina. So next time we're gonna look at Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Yes. Woo!
Huh? And on that note of Peter's jubilation, I'm Brock Jennings.
I'm Peter Clark.
And this has been another episode of Intercontinental Media.
You're not good enough for Beverly